Blackmagic Design recently released the newest version of Resolve 16.2, and one of the new features they added was the ability to do fusion transitions, which work just like the built-in transitions on the edit page, and allows you to create your own and modify existing ones. So in my previous video on fusion transitions, I showed you how you can modify and create presets, also create your own fusion transitions by using macros in the Fusion tab. But one of the things I was wondering is that basically you don't use keyframes in the Fusion tab to do the animation between the two clips that are part of the transition. You're using something called a resolve parameter, and that's built into Resolve, and that takes care of that change. So you take whatever parameter you want to animate, you right click on it and go modify with, and you choose that resolve parameter, and that takes care of the animation. So if you see here and watch, I did that with this blend on this mosaic dissolve. So as I move through the transition, that changes. It doesn't, you don't see it change here, but it does change in the Fusion tab. But I was wondering if you can do anything to that, because right now it just seems like it's very linear. So I was wondering if maybe you could edit the spline, and I found out that you can. So in this video I'll be showing you how to, from the Fusion tab, change the parameters so that you can change the spline for your fusion transition and choose the ease in, ease out, and even the way it animates in and out. So I'll show you how to modify the splines in the next section. Alright, so I've added one of the fusion transitions from the menu here that I created. So to switch to that in the Fusion tab, you right click on it, click open in Fusion tab. So here I have the group open. I have my two different nodes inside. Now I've used the resolve parameter on both the blend of the mosaic blur here and also dissolve. I did it on the background foreground, and I've modified it with a resolve parameter. So basically I look for spline for these parameters. So I'll say I go to mosaic blur here, click on the spline menu here, and you see that it does have it listed for both of these. So right now I just have it under the mosaic blur, and it's called blend resolve parameter. So you can see it right here, but I'm not going to extend this out. So you can see right now that it's just basically a linear slope here going from 0 to 1. So if I go back and forth here, you can see it starts at 0, and if I get to the end of the transition, it goes to 1. You can see that here in the global blend here. And the same thing if I show the dissolve, it's the same thing. And you can see there's no points or anything, or at least looks like there's no points. There's no way to edit this spline. It's not actually acting like a spline right now. It's just kind of a ramp here. And change that parameter from 0 to 1. But basically what you need to do to get it to be able to be modified under the spline menu here, the spline editor, is you have to get the modifiers, because the resolve parameter is a modifier, but kind of by default for some reason you don't really see it show up here. There's nothing, you can't click on it, it's grayed out. So I found out that if you right click on it and go to edit splines on each of these, and then go back to the other one and switch back and forth, now the modifiers are visible. And if I go to dissolve, modifier is visible. So I'll go to mosaic blur like it was before. I'll click on modifiers, and now you have these three different settings here under this first tab, which is parameter. And then you also have two other settings here under the time tab here, and that's time scale and time offset. And then you have scale and offset here. So if I open up the spline again, you'll see that same spline as before. But if I change these parameters, you'll see the slope of this changing and how quickly it'll come very steep, or it'll not go from 0 to 1. So I'll change scale first, and I'll reduce that down. And make sure I'm in mosaic blur. I was on the wrong one here. So I'll make sure I can see mosaic blur. I'll turn off the dissolve. So as I change the scale here, you'll see this slope now moves, this line moves. I move that up and down. and set it back to default. And I can also change the offset. See, that modifies the slope as well. And that changes how the animation of the transition happens. It'll happen quicker or more gradual, but it's still just linear. And if I do the same thing, set that back to 0, come to the time, sort of the same thing, it's modifying the time scale, so it's making it happen quicker. It's increasing the steepness of the ramp. Or I can change the time offset. And you can see that's changing the slope of the ramp as well. But basically the way to get it so that it's animatable and that you could change it and do an ease in and ease out is to make sure at the beginning here you want to animate which of the parameters you want to do. So if I want to do the scale, if I click on the keyframe, that now adds for scale something change here. Then I can go forward, say to the midway range here, and change the scale to say halfway. And then I can go to the end and change it back. And now you see I have the curve here, and it actually has points that you can now edit and change the spline and change the slope and ease in and ease out. So you just turn it off and turn it back on again for scale. And now you have your basically editable spline here. So you have your different points. So I click on any one of these points, and it gives me a handle, so I could change the ease in and ease out here. And to do that to any of these points, do that at the beginning here, and change that curve. And you can also modify it and have this, select this point and move this point up here, and then move these 2 points down. So you can change the way it works here, take it down to like 0.1 here, do the same one with this, change that down, and that all modifies how the transition happens between the two different clips. So you just play around with that and do the same thing if you then want to switch to the dissolve. Just make sure you're in modifiers, and you can go to the beginning, and again for the scale, hit a keyframe, you can go to the middle or to the end, wherever you want, and change the parameter. And go to the end here again, change it back to 0. And then I can turn off the mosaic and go to dissolve scale. And now I have my points here that I can edit. I could also add a point if I want. Just hover over top of it and left click, and I'll create a new point. So now I could change it. Again, change the slope here for ease in and ease out. So that's the way you can edit the spline of your new Fusion transitions. You can edit the ease in and ease out, add as many points as you want, and modify it any way you want. So hopefully you found this video useful, and I thank you for watching.